On July the 16th, 1945, the first nuclear weapon, codenamed Trinity, was detonated. Shortly after, atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In the years that followed, many more nuclear devices were tested. While this was seen by military and government as a step towards progress and ultimate dominance on the world stage, little research had been conducted into the environmental contamination caused by these tests, or the vast potential for physical harm for the humans residing nearby. At the center of this enormous nuclear effort was the AEC, America's Atomic Energy Committee. On January 18, 1955, behind a set of closed doors, a highly secretive meeting is convened by the Division of Biology and Medicine, an advisory board under the umbrella of the AEC. The main topic of discussion? A secret body snatching program carried out on members of the US population with a particular focus on babies and young children, a program dubbed Project Sunshine. Officially titled as a biophysics conference, the meeting had been called as a response to the increasing amount of nuclear tests being carried out in and around America and the Pacific Ocean. Project Sunshine was concerned with acquiring tissue samples of both the living and deceased from areas that were geographically close to atomic testing sites, in order to judge the levels and effects of radiation in nearby populations. The events of this meeting, and the objectives and practices involved in Project Sunshine, would remain hidden for 4 decades, until this transcript and surrounding documents were made available through the classified materials section of America's National Archive. As the meeting commenced, the director of the Division of Biology and Medicine, Dr. John Buer, explained that the increasing bomb tests had accelerated the need for their accompanying research. The following is taken verbatim from the meeting's written transcript.
The picture we had of 2 years ago being able to continue in a reasonably measured pace with respect to problems in the environmental contamination has obviously not been possible to maintain. That is, events have overtaken us and we must of necessity put on an accelerated program here as an expression of the fact that weapons have taken an enormous leap in energy release during the intervening time. The events of this spring during the Castle series were such as to bring very dramatically to the public attention the fundamental character of the things with which we are dealing with and the necessity for precise knowledge and good prediction.
By the events of this spring, Dr. Buer was referring directly to the accidental irradiation of the Marshall Islands. At this point, the meeting was turned over to AEC Commissioner Willard Libby, the primary proponent of Project Sunshine. Dr. Libby began by stating that there was no program of more importance to the AEC than that of Project Sunshine. However, as Dr. Libby would explain, there were significant gaps in the data, and right from the offset, he makes it clear that samples of children were the most important to acquire.
By far the most important is human samples. We have been reduced to essentially zero level on the human samples. I don't know how to get them, but I do say that it is a matter of prime importance to get them, and particularly in the young age group. We were fortunate, as you know, to obtain a large number of stillborns as material. This supply, however, has now been cut off also and shows no signs, I think, of being rejuvenated. So human samples are of prime importance, and if anyone knows how to do a good job of body snatching, they will really be serving their country.
Libby is fully in acknowledgement that it will not be possible to procure the samples that they are looking for legally.
I don't know how to snatch bodies. In the original study on the Sunshine brand in the summer of 1953, we hired an expensive law firm to look up a law of body snatching. This compendium is available to you. It is not very encouraging. It shows how very difficult it is going to be to do legally.
The compendium that was put together by the law firm regarding body snatching has so far not been located. At this point in the meeting, a third participant, Dr. J. Lawrence Culp from Columbia University, discusses the various contacts they had for acquiring bodies and body parts.
We have all the channels in these places where we are getting everything. We have 3 or 4 other leads where we could get a complete age range samples from different other geographic localities. These are Vancouver, Houston, New York. We could easily get them from Puerto Rico and other places. We could get virtually everyone that dies in this range.
Are these operative materials?
These are all deaths between 1 and 30.
That is wonderful.
We have 20 coming from Vancouver and 20 from Houston in this range that have already been taken. So the channel is there and the samples are flowing in.
That's fine, Larry. Maybe you can reveal your technique to the other groups. Down in Houston, they don't have all these rules. They claim that they can get virtually, and they intend to get virtually every death in the age range we are interested in that occurs in the city of Houston. They have a lot of poverty cases and so on. Furthermore, before coming down to this conference, I talked at some length with the Dean of Columbia Medical School, and he has contacts all over the world where he is sure we could develop identical programs. In particular, we could develop a program in Australia, South America, Africa, in the Near East, and in Scandinavian countries, if the conference and the people would like to have this developed.
This shocking admission confirms that the AEC were already acquiring cadavers illegally from at least 7 locations across the United States, with the ability to set up this infrastructure in many other places internationally. Furthermore, and a running theme in American affairs, there seems to be a decision to target the lower classes, specifically the impoverished or people in less developed areas, as they make for easier targets. This is something seen time and time again in American Black Ops. For example, various CIA drug testing trials such as MKUltra that heavily and unethically experimented on the African American prison population. At this point in the meeting, the conferees begin to discuss the program's level of operational secrecy. Dr. Libby considers the possibility of lowering it slightly in order to benefit the number of samples they will be able to acquire.
At least the existence of the project, I hope we will get away with revealing. Whether this is going to help with the body snatching program, I don't know. I think it will. It is a delicate program in public relations, obviously. I don't know. This is a major objective.
Dr. Culp makes the suggestion that good personal relations are essential to making ground in both maintaining secrecy and ensuring a good flow of cadaver material.
You have to have a personal interest in and almost a friendly tie to develop this, because you have to have the medical records, yet you have the security problem to deal with too. I found these cases that we were able to develop that there was enough understanding and confidence so that the men did not require you to tell them to do everything except they realized that it was something confidential. They could guess, and they probably didn't guess very far wrong, but they were willing to cooperate on the basis that this was an important thing. I think with this connection through one of the top of medical people who is internationally known, it will not be hard at all to establish the sites that we could establish.
This implies a network of relationships maintained by Dr. Culp and his subordinates with many members of the American medical community. This is confirmed immediately by Dr. Buher, who makes the case for giving some of these individuals a certain level of clearance in the project.
There is a system of L clearance whereby, when the need exists, we can disclose even restricted data to individuals not Q cleared, but who have had a preliminary check. That might be something which could be done without that individual having to fill out any forms or anything of the kind. For this purpose, you are not dealing with irresponsible people. You are dealing with directors of hospitals and pathologists, and persons in general who have had an understanding of the seriousness of the project in which we are engaged.
It's certainly shocking that these men were at the least considering making members of the medical community knowing agents in serious criminal and unethical activity. This was a widespread desecration of the recently deceased, which in most, if not all cases, meant deceiving a family and stealing the entire or partial remains of their loved ones. A fourth participant in the meeting, a Mr. Eisenbud from AEC's New York office, discusses the possibility of a blind, what we'd now refer to as a cover story, something that the program was already using in a manner by telling the medical employees procuring the cadavers that this was for routine analysis. This, however, would be a blind to the public at large. Finally, there was discussion of the need for resources from other countries. The final member of the committee, silent up until this point, Colonel Maxwell of the Armed Forces Special Weapons Project, suggested the armed services could provide some help for specimens of the local population. The possibilities included Germany, a native hospital in Formosa, and the Navy unit in Cairo. However, Dr. Buer explained that rather than using any kind of strong-arm tactics, in almost every instance it had been necessary to pay by the sample, and this explanation came with some worrying further admissions.
I don't think that in other areas where one wants human material collected you have ever been successful, unless you've had someone locally responsible who got paid by the sample. Over the years in the Rockefeller Foundation and the yellow fever studies, we got tens of thousands of liver specimens all through Latin America by that scheme. Of course, we've lost a few agents too who got shot or knifed, but not very many actually. It was a complete failure in Africa, though for interesting reasons relevant to this thing. You almost have to have somebody who sees some reward for himself in doing this work. It is too much to ask of people that they maintain a pure, exalted scientific enthusiasm and are just collecting samples.
Here, Dr. Buer admits that the Rockefeller Foundation, in conjunction with the American government, were paying local doctors in Latin America for tens of thousands of liver samples. Not only that, but they had agents killed in the process of doing so. His admittal of attempting the program in Africa also begins to paint a very far-reaching picture of an international network of illegally sought cadavers, organs, and body parts, specifically targeting the young and specifically targeting the poor. As mentioned earlier, the accidental irradiation of the Marshall Islands in 1954 had drawn a lot of public concern, and atomic weapon testing and fallout had become a subject of international debate. In the year following the meeting, Dr. Libby would give a presentation on the effects of strontium in the human body, and in February of 1957, Dr. Culp published a report on strontium-90 in man in the National Scientific Journal. Both based their findings on samples acquired through their worldwide body snatching network. The AEC wouldn't hold its first major hearing on fallout until May of 1957. That same year, Libby wrote a response to a proposal from the National Institute of Health regarding the collection of children's milk teeth in order to test levels of strontium-90 in the population.
I would not encourage publicity in connection with the program. We have found that in collecting human samples, publicity is not particularly helpful. We could get the teeth going by having investigators make their own collections. The samples need not be too large. Dentists would help.
It's pretty clear from this that Dr. Libby had no plans to change his tactics, and certainly no moral concerns regarding the acquisition of samples from unknowing subjects. Indeed, he saw that as being beneficial to project success. Ultimately, the study concluded that the amount of strontium-90 found in humans did not indicate an immediate health hazard from atomic testing. Given the enormous amount of nuclear testing going on at the time, and the AEC's ubiquitous interest in atomic energy, it is unlikely that they would have announced any other outcome. Between 1945 and 1992, America conducted 1,054 nuclear tests, including 216 tests either in the ocean or in the upper atmosphere. As we now know, strontium-90 can vary between mildly damaging and very serious, depending on the level of exposure, with significant exposure increasing the risk of several diseases, including bone cancer and leukemia. Beyond that, the environmental damage caused by nuclear weapons is far-reaching and long-lasting, and it is of no doubt that the abundant testing of nuclear weaponry has been enormously harmful to our environment. It was not in the US interest for these harmful effects to come to light, but they were ultimately undeniable, much to the chagrin of America, which had spent a lot of time and money selling the benefits of atomic energy to their populace. This is a story about unchecked science and a detachment from morality spurred on by post-war notions of America's claim on the so-called pole position, a seat of global dominance that it still enjoys today. At least 1,500 samples were gathered from around the world, predominantly from the Americas. That's 1,500 families who had their relatives' bodies desecrated or, in many cases, removed completely. The presidential panel that made these documents public did not seek out or notify these families, nor did they issue an apology for the actions of their past government. They did, however, uncover many more hundreds of experiments conducted in secret on American and international citizens that will become the subject of future videos. The entire content of this video has been 100% factual, it hasn't been embellished or altered in any way, and it seemed like a great place to start because it is, without doubt, a conspiracy. It is in fact a literal transcript of conspiracy, and quite a dark one at that. Powerful men in a shadowy room laying their plans bare, even discussing how best to cover it up. And it all comes 100% confirmed from US government sources, which is a pretty rare thing in the world of conspiracy. But it's important to remember that a conspiracy is simply a group of people plotting in secret. There are likely more ongoing than we've ever discovered, and as we move forward, I think it'll become pretty clear that where the American government is concerned, not much of this is left to theory. If you enjoyed watching this video, if you'd like to see more, please consider giving us a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, see you next time.